Greetings, friends. Welcome to this episode of Midweek Bible Study on the parables of Jesus Christ. My name is Jerry Ogles. I will be your host. This is sponsored by the Anglican Orthodox Communion worldwide. In a way of review, let us examine the circumstances that bring us to these concluding verses concerning the prodigal son, and actually the self-righteous son, which is what this parable ends with. At the beginning of this chapter, Jesus is teaching and preaching to the poor, the downcast, the publicans and sinners, to which the self-righteous scribes and Pharisees take no little umbrage. So he tells the parable of three lost things: the lost lamb, the lost coin, and the lost son. The lost lamb has limited awareness and understanding. It still belongs to the shepherd, but it is lost and bleats in the wilderness to be found. The newly born Christian also may wander off the right way and will pray to be found. The lost coin, on the other hand, is inanimate. It has not any awareness at all. It is like the sinner dead in trespasses and sin, Ephesians chapter 2. It is owned by the world, and the world does not relish losing it. Neither does the world desire to lose the lost sinner, for whom the Lord came to seek and to save. The lost son has a father with whom he has lived from birth. He never ceases to be his father. The boy is immature and presumptuous in asking for his inheritance before his father's death. He goes into a far country away from his father and lives a life of debauchery. Anytime we go away from God, we go into a far country. Once his treasure is exhausted, he has no friends in the far country and really never had any. He feeds the pigs of a stranger and wishes to partake of their provender. But even in a far country, the boy still has a father who loves him and awaits his return. Now he has returned, and the father treats him graciously and even prepares a great feast for him. Let us read together the account of the self-righteous son, coming from the Gospel of St. Luke, chapter 15, quoting from verse 25. Now his elder son was in the field, and as he came and drew nigh to the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said unto him, Thy brother is come, and thy father hath killed the fatted lamb, because he hath received him safe and sound. And he was angry, and would not go in. Therefore came his father out, and entreated him. And he answering said to his father, Lo, these many years do I serve thee, neither transgressed I at any time thy commandment, and yet thou never gavest me a kid, that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as this thy son was come, which hath devoured thy living with harlots, thou hast killed for him the fatted lamb. And he said unto him, Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine. It was meet that we should make merry and be glad. For this thy brother was dead, and is alive again, and was lost, and now is found. This reminds me just a little bit of the story of Jonah, who didn't want the people of Nineveh to be saved. He was self-righteous. And so, in the end, the Lord saved them anyway. Now we look at the older brother, and he is working in the field, and he discovers the feast given by his errant brother. He has been faithfully serving his father in obedience to his father's law. But this younger brother has wasted his inheritance in party and riotous living. So how does the older brother respond in learning of his younger brother coming home safely? Is he joyful of his return? Or is his ire aroused at it? He is livid with jealousy. He has remained faithful to his father in all things. But this younger brother has betrayed his father's love treacherously, and so have each of us. This is a practical lesson directed to the scribes and Pharisees and the Jewish rulers who presumed themselves to be righteous and above the poor and sinners, the Gentiles even, and the publicans. In fact, even if they had kept the law directly and perfectly, and no man can, they would still be greater sinners than those who came to hear the words of the gospel taught by Christ. The elect of God were not called and chosen for their good works, but by the unmerited grace of God. We have no goodness to recommend us to God. Only by responding to the effectual calling of the Holy Spirit can we be saved. We judge others most often in the instant of the moment and on outward appearance. But the Lord makes our election based upon His prescience and knowing all about us from before birth till we close our eyes in death. And all that He does is just and good. Remember the words of that great Mayflower pilgrim who said, "There but for the grace of God goes John Bradford." This was uttered by John Bradford, a Protestant reformer, as he passed by a criminal on his way to the execution block, while he himself was being held for execution in the local jail. We have no right to look down on others because they are less good than we. We're not good enough to be Christians. We're not good enough to be ministers. But when God calls us to a calling, to an office, He will make us able to bear it. God bless you. Thank you for listening. Catch you again next week with another Bible study. Good night.